Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel and welcome to episode 37 of project LS400. What do I have in store this episode? Well, first and foremost, I took the driver's seat out, already have it set up on my work table, so I want to fix the issue with the recliner of the driver's seat, and there's a lot of other things I want to fix. As I said in the previous episode, I want to take off this front section of the headliner to hopefully resolve the water leak issue that I have. I need to take out a part of the center console because some buttons aren't illuminated, and that's something that really bothers me. That's one to fix. And also there's a headlight washer that isn't working, and while I have the car in winter storage, it seems to be an ideal time to go work on that. So without any further ado, let's get started and roll intro. So this is the driver's seat, and if it's your first time taking it out, you have to take some things in account. I've done a video on this before, but I'm gonna quickly go over it. First and foremost, put the seat back up as right as you can get it. I have this seat out because the reclining function only works on the outer side near the door, so it is a bit crooked, but anyway, try to get it as upright as you can. Tuck the headrest in, and note that this headrest is motorized. Let me show you around the buttons, the seat buttons. Oh, these things are heavy. That's also another thing that you have to keep in mind. But this is the recliner for the seat back, and if you push it down and up, it raises or lowers the headrest. Many people don't know this, but anyway, now you know. And when you want to take it off, you have to slide it back and forth to take the bolts out. And once you've done that, you can put it in its center position, centered on the rail, and then you have to disconnect the connector. There is a lever over there, so you have to pry that lever loose and then fully tilt it over. I'm gonna show you in a second, and only then you can take the connector apart. And then I highly recommend putting a thick cloth or something on the door sill, because you have real sharp edges, and if you have to take the inner part out, you really have to tilt the seat out because it's so heavy. It often happens that it hits the sill and you scratch the paint, and don't ask me how I know. It happened to me twice before. Anyway, let me first show you the connector. It's a bit hard to film with one hand, but over here you have the connector, and there is this lever on top that you have to fold over. And once it's clicked over, it pulls the connector on the car, the body part, into this one. So anyway, that's that. So there's the seat, and if you look in here from down below, you can see right there's one screw. And let's slide over to the other side. There is the other screw. Yeah, you can just see the Phillips head. So I'm gonna unscrew those two, and then I can take that back panel off. And these are self-tapping screws. They are not metric, so they come off quite easily. And I can already feel that plastic panel falling down. Let's store them safely. I can loosen it from the lower part. Now I should be able to, sketching in here, then we have the other part, and so there it is, it's off. These hooks in the top, then there are small clips to the side, one here, one there, and these are the hooks that screw to the seat frame. And this is the rubber band for the map and paper pocket. Anyway, let's put that aside and reset the camera. Now the seats are, as the rest of the LS400, incredibly complex pieces of engineering. The LS400 has very simple looking design, but when you go into the detail you can see there is a lot of thought gone in there, and it's the same with the seats. These aren't simple things, so you have to be really careful and conscious when you take them apart. But anyway, there are a lot of clips that you don't want to lose, and this is fabric that's sewn to the leather, and this allows it to pull it tight around the seat frame. So let's see if we can remove this. These are little clips made of spring steel, so they can fight you a little bit, and once they let go they fly all over the place, so you don't want to lose that. And they have pretty sharp edges on there. So there it is. So I don't need to remove the upholstery from the seat. I only want to have access to the adjustment of the seat back. And I kind of hoped I would find it in here, but it seems to be, oh yeah, there is the motor. And down below I can see the shaft, and this seems to be a plastic shaft. And there are metal gears on the outside. This is, well, really tight. And can I get this part out? There is sort of Velcro on there. Don't forget, there is a wire running for the heated seat. That's this connector over here. Now it's off. And I can already see what the problem is, because this is the shaft. This came loose. Let me pick up the camera. So over here you have the motor for the headrest. This is the motor for the seat back, so the reclining function. So we have to look into this mechanism. Let me put a little bit of extra light on there. And there is the adjuster for the door side. Then you have this shaft over here, where I put my finger on that. That's the shaft. It runs the lower part all the way to here, and here is the mechanism that sits to the center console. And as you can see, this is what's going on. It came off, and there's a spline connection over here, and my fear is, what I think it is that the splines inside this aluminium part have gone, so I can slide it over, but how do I keep it on there? That's the problem I have. So I'm gonna try and see if I can disassemble this a little bit further. I disconnected all the connectors and came to the conclusion that there are more connectors in the seat back of an LS400 than there are in an entire Toyota Starlet. Anyway, what I want to try to do now is take off the seat back in its entirety. I hope this motor for the headrest adjustment comes off. Then we have another motor here that's for the lumbar support. There are 1, 2, 3 bolts on the inside, and there are 1, 2 and 3 bolts on the outside. So I want to see if I loosen them, that I can take the entire seat back off. Okay. Yeah, that went better than expected. And I also just found out that these edges indeed are razor sharp. I didn't cut myself, but it's a bit of risk. Hey, and what I find here, oh, this is one of the clips that goes into the glove compartment. This is one of the flocked clips. You need to remove the glove compartment if you want to remove the engine ECU. So I'm gonna put this in the car. So now we also have a very clear view on our problem, and that's this shaft, and it's not going over here anymore. I can just already see that, yeah, all these little splines in here, yeah, the splines themselves are pretty sharp, but I'm pretty sure that they have eaten into this aluminium tube, and now it's out. There's already a lot of flakes coming out. Yeah, I can see, comparing this side, you can see the teeth, the splines in here, and this one is completely worn off. So this is the only thing that we need to adjust. But the thing is, I expected when the shaft was out this would move, that this probably has a worm drive, so this can't move, but I somehow expected that this would move too. Anywho, close-up time. Now I have the light in here. You can see the splines in there. So this is the motor side. Let's turn it around. And this is the other side, and all the splines are gone. So that's something we need to fix, and I think I take this to my workshop at home and see if we can well, maybe put in a little new piece of aluminium in there. I'm not sure if the camera picks this up, but you have to trust me on that. Maybe I'll show you in a close-up, but there are colored marks over here that are made in factory, and these are the alignment marks, so that this arm over here is aligned with this one. Now over here you can see this bit of fabric, and that's put there to cover up this mechanism, so if you get into the car you don't see any of this mechanism. But over here there are also alignment marks in white and blue, that's the outside, and white and pink, that's on the inside. And if these are all aligned on both sides, that means that they run in sync. Yeah, this runs pretty smooth. There is a little bit of play on this mechanism, but now I have this timed on its paint marks, and I do the same on this side. Both these arms are equal. So I'm really glad that I found out that this works correctly. Is a bit wobbly, but once the seat back is in place, that's one solid piece. Okay, and I realized that may be wise to just check the drive motor for the seat back. Reason is it has a pretty tough job. I mean, not everybody is small and light as I am, so if you are a heavier person or a person that is really leaning to the seat back and you want to adjust it, this has to move a lot of weight. So just want to inspect the inside, and also once this is off I can clock this arm too. The motor is held in place by 3 Phillips head screws, which are actually Japanese industry standard screws. Something that a lot of people don't realize. Oh, those seem to be Phillips head screws. Japanese industry standard has a different shape of cross on your screwdriver. There's always a little dot stamped into the screw, but it appears that these are Phillips head screws. Anyway, only takes 3 screws, and they were not specifically tied. So, and off. Well, easier said than done, Arnold. Or is there another screw somewhere? No, there isn't. There's this. So this is the motor. Very heavy duty gear. A sprocket is in here with dried up lube. So I'm gonna clean all of that. Just take this home. Very interested to see how this works, because there's also a seat memory, and I want to see if there's an encoder inside here, just out of curiosity. That may help for future repairs, to see if there's some kind of measurement device in there. Oh, and pro tip, here's the screws. Always put the screws back in their threads so you don't lose them, and you know where they go. Yeah, it's very comfy in the back of an LS400, especially with the driver's seat out. Anyway, let's continue working on the interior. The next thing I want to do is take off that front panel over there, the front section of the headliner. For those of you who are new to this project and this channel, this car has had problems in the past with water leakage. From time to time, especially when it's raining for a longer period of time and the car is parked, it starts to leak somewhere in the front, and that section over there, the headliner gets wet and the car gets all moist on the inside. So that panel needs to come off, and also I want to remove this little panel over here where the bin is, because this light is too bright and that light isn't working, and you need to know how to take this off, otherwise you can damage it. So that's what I want to show you. Start over on this side. So this needs to unclip. Then there's a screw over there, and it does not come off, or does it? Yeah, it does come off. Alrighty, let's put that aside. Now the thing that you need to know when you take this panel off, or if you want to take it off, you have to remove the lens from the interior light, and it's pretty hard not to damage it. So I have made a little scratch, a little dent on this side, and that's where I always start to pry. Whoa. And then there are 3 screws in here. Let's switch it off, by the way. Of course, that drops under the seat. We can take this panel off. There it is. Now comes a tricky bit. This is very tricky. The rear view mirror is installed in a very strange clip, and if you don't know how to take it off, even if you have the workshop manual, it's so easy to damage it. So I made my own construction in here. Otherwise it would fall off every time you move the rear view mirror. So there it is, just clips in place on the back, but some way how it was clipped in pretty hard. Now normally there is a clipping mechanism over here with a little plastic thingy, but I made 2 screws in here just to make sure that the rear view mirror stays in place. So let's put this aside. Now in theory all of this is now ready to pull off. Only thing is that it's along these A-pillars there are a couple of hidden screws over there. So we need to pull off these little covers. I hope the camera will pick this up. These little covers for the grip. So, and the thing is that these little covers are directional. They are not the same. They are different front and back. They are different left to right. So for the front hand grips or the rear hand grips, there are 4 different versions of this. So now rotate a little bit away, and if I'm not mistaken there are 2 screws all the way in front here. Let me get the camera. I hope you can see that. And those are the 2 screws that I mentioned that you need to take off, and they are hidden behind the cladding, the panel over the A-pillar and the roof. You have a shorter screwdriver, you can take them out. Let's see if I can get this screwdriver in. Can I pull that section out? I'll repeat the same on the driver's side and just fold the visors in. Oh, that's easier said than done, Arnold. Let's put them like this because there's a small connector for the lights that we need to take off. But we can only do that once it is clipped off from behind the A-pillar. So let's do the same over here. We don't have to remove the hand grip on the driver's side because there isn't any. We can clip this section off. And now this entire panel can come off. Let's move that out of the way. Now I said there are 2 little connectors and they are hidden over here in front. And you can access them via the hole. You can access them via this hole for the interior lamp. Maybe I can put it this way and use a small screwdriver. The clip is on top. This one is upside down, oddly enough. But here is the entire panel out. Okay, let me show you what the problem area is. So driver's seat, seating position. This is the top corner on driver's side, and somewhere in this section is where water comes in. And now I want to see if I can pinpoint the area where the water comes in and just put some some RDV or some glue in there. Hopefully that will keep the water out, because it may be a small spot but a lot of water gets in here. This entire section of the headliner has been wet, but that's not for now. There's another thing I want to do, as said, and that's take off these panels. I'm gonna clear up my mess and then we're gonna take that off. when you look at this, you don't see any screws, and that's because there aren't any. It's clipped in place, but you have to know what you're doing. Usually I start pulling on the rear side over here. Be careful, these two small strips on either side of the gear selection lever are very narrow, so they can break easily, and that happens often. But if you pull it up on the rear, it comes out and it hooks in the front, and just pull it back, and then you have it out. And this is how this thing looks. There are clips on the back, and there should be two hooks on the front, but one is already broken because some baboon has been in here before. I don't see any remnants of the old hook, so that is what it is. So this easily slides in. Should not lose it. But anyway, and now we have access to this section over here. I put a gear shift all the way back, and then you can just pull it and it clips out. So it's very simple. It's easy to overthink this. So push with the screwdriver on the top, and there's one behind here with an extra wire, and then you have the ashtray with the buttons out. These buttons depend on the options you have: heated seats, traction control, and the headlight washers. Now I also wanted to replace the bulb in this little button over here. Now I kind of forgot how this goes together, but I just start pulling lightly in the front, something clicks loose, put the gear shift lever to the end position, and hopefully I can rotate it, put it in the front. Can I slide it over? Yes, we can. And there's a bunch of connectors over here which are clipped in position. I just want to remove these switches from this bezel. There it is. I'm gonna unplug these two also. So there's a bunch of switches. You always have this power and normal button, that's for the transmission, and if your car is equipped with air suspension, you get the sport normal selector for the shock absorbers, and ride height, norm and high. So I'm gonna take this home. And the past I already replaced the illumination for the gear selector, just for good measure. Check it, yeah, that's working fine. So that's it for today. I'm going home and we start tinkering in my little workshop. It's a couple of hours later and we're in my little shed in our backyard on my electronics bench. It's nice and warm here. It's much better at this moment. It's 18 degrees in here. So what am I doing? Well, I'm taking apart some of the electronic components, and I do this because I want to document what the inside of those components look like and try to figure out how they work. I take pictures of it and I'll upload them to my website. I'll leave the link in the description box of this video, and I want to do that so other owners and technicians know what the inside looks like, and know what to expect, what's inside, and do some diagnostics online before they actually take it apart. So over here I currently have the motor hooked up to my power supply, and I just let it run back and forth and just see how it works. It's very simple. It's a worm drive, and I look at the grease. There's plenty of grease still in there, and there's a circular magnet, and here is a Hall effect sensor, and this determines the position by counting the rotations and the position of this gear in here, and that is stored in the ECU, in the electronic memory that's in each front seat. So each front seat has its own memory. I'm gonna show that in a minute. And what I did is I powered it up and looked and listened if it runs well, and it runs problem free. So I'm not going to take this further apart, and I just wanted to see how much amp it draws, and that tells me whether or not this is a healthy engine, or healthy motor I should say. So I'm gonna hook it up again and show you what it looks like when it's rotating, so you can have a listen. This is a known good motor. So let's power it up. It starts to rotate. It's currently 2 volts. Maybe you can see it in the corner over here, and it already starts rotating. Now we listen. It only needs 5 volt, and at max it draws about 2 amp. Currently it's 5.5 volts, draws 1.5 amp. It's a real powerful motor. It has to be. And this is just working fine. So what I'm going to do next is just push a little bit of excess grease back in between the worm wheel and the sprocket, so now there's plenty of lubrication, and then I'm going to put this back together. So this is how it looks when the motor is back together. I clean this little sprocket. I'm gonna lubricate it once it gets back onto the seat. There's one important word of advice. I've seen it happen with the LS400 that one of the motors in the seat didn't work. What often happens is there is a little capacitor inside here, a small ceramic capacitors, and when they short out, the motors don't work. I had it in my very first LS400, where the motor of the vertical adjustment of the seat, so where it raised the seat in the back, that motor did not work, and I took it apart and I saw that the capacitor, that was a ceramic capacitor inside, was damaged. I replaced it, and then everything was working fine. So this one's good to go back into the seat. Oh yeah, and another thing is, if these motors are working fine, just leave them be. Don't take them apart. It causes more trouble and inconvenience than that you have any benefit of it. So up next is this little mystery box that's underneath the seat. It says seat position control. You probably can read the part number. I already opened it up. There are these lips on the lower side that fold under the lower case. I completely took it apart. And this is something that I think is mighty interesting, especially because I don't know the exact inner workings of this, because that's always what fascinated me about electronics. But this is a very nice, super high quality circuit board. This is the back. Made some pictures of it with the least amount of glare. I'll put a link up to those pictures. They're on my website. So let's put this aside and have a close-up look on this circuit board. I'm going to reposition the camera. Okay, let's have a close-up look. Let's start off with the back. There are some surface mount components over here. So there's a lot of resistors. I believe they are resistors, and there are some tiny transistors. They are really tiny. This is something that was brand spanking new in the early 1990s, to the best of my knowledge, and that is something that you see in the engine ECU too. So these are, high tech for its time. But on the other side, this is very basic 1980s electronics. There's a large array of diodes over here, and over there is a separate IC, some smaller ICs. I have some close-up pics which I will put up on my website. And this section over here, this is a rubber cover, and that rubber cover is, there it is, are 10 relays or 5 pairs of relays, and this cover is noise insulation so that you don't hear those relays click. Now I counted the number of functions on the seat, and I wrote them down. So we have the seat forward and back, then the front of the seat in height up and down, and the rear of the seat goes up and down, so you can tilt the seat, but you can also raise the seat. And of course there's the seat heater, and for the seat back it can tilt forward and back, so that's the recline function, the lumbar in and out, and the headrest up and down, and of course the seat back heater. So that's a grand total of 6 movements, and the seat heater is the 7th function. Now you know what's lurking underneath there in this separate ECU, and it's just fascinating to see how they made things work in the late 1980s and early 1990s. I think a lot of those motion controllers can be controlled by, in its entirety in the car, can be handled by a single tiny Raspberry Pi thingy that fits on the tip of your index finger. But anyway, if something breaks in this, it's easy to just spot where the fault is, and it's fairly simple if you know what you're doing to repair the fault. So anyway, I was just curious to see what's inside here. I'm gonna put the ECU back together, and then this can go back into the car. A couple of days later, and I managed to fix the backlight in here, the little bulbs. I didn't buy the entire bulb, but there are these tiny little replacement bulbs, and I ordered them from Conrad years ago, by the way. So this is the part number, or the article number, 538-398-14, and they are 12 volt, and I matched them. They are color matching out, so that's done. And over here I did the same with those two buttons, but I must say this one is a tad brighter. That was the case already, but that's because of the little silicon green sock that's over there. But anyway, that's done. And another thing, and I didn't show this when I was at the car, but I took off the, I'll call it the clasp, the buckle of the seat belt, because I wanted to see what's inside. It was very dirty on the upside, so there's the word press embossed in there, and those were really dirty. So out of curiosity, I took it apart. And what many people don't know, and even what LS400 owners don't realize, is that this section over here, I point my finger left and right, is illuminated in the dark. So when you get in a car and when you put on your seatbelt, it's illuminated. And I wanted to see how this works. So I took it apart, and there's a small little circuit board with two LEDs on there. So these won't break, and so I was curious to see if there were incandescent bulb or LEDs in there. And now we know there are LEDs in there. But I'm actually glad that I took it apart, because every now and then the belt wouldn't clasp in here, it wouldn't click. And there was an awful lot of hair in here. So I cleaned everything, and I put this in the ultrasonic cleaner. So this is ready to go back together. Alright, where was I? We're actually a couple of days later, and I cleaned and fixed some minor things to the seat, and I've also been able to fix this tube. Now this tube, as mentioned, sits between the driven and the driven and the drive side. This is the motor side of the seat back, and it has those splines on there, which I showed you, and the splines are also in the ends of this tube. At least I thought so, because on closer inspection the splines in here are continuous. They are extruded into this pipe. So this is a very expensive piece of material. It's thick wall aluminium, and it has these splines extruded in. Now, of course the thing won't focus, but I've shot some pics of my repair. Now let me remove this plastic tube. So when I found out that these splines are continuous on the inside, I cut the worn end off, turned it around, I tapped M10 threads in there, put a piece of threaded insert in here, which you can see in the pictures over here. Then I put strong Loctite on there, put it together, and now I can put it back in, and now it should work for the next 30 years. Well folks, make no mistake, this seat is extremely heavy. The seat back doesn't add much weight, but this is an extremely heavy thing. As things go in a workshop, every horizontal area becomes storage room. In my workshop is no different. So let's put this out of the way, and let's start assembling the seat. The last thing to come on is the seat belt, the clasp, the buckle. Not sure what the correct term is. It has to be done in a specific order when it comes to the rings and bolts. It needs to be on tight enough to the seat frame so it doesn't come loose ever again, but it also has to be free to move. Now let me zoom in so I can show you the order of the bolts, the bolt and the rings. So first on the outside you have the bolt, then comes this is a bent washer that sits on the bolt, and this goes in from the outside. Then comes a large washer, goes on like this. Then there is this retainer clip, star-like, sun-like clip that goes over there, and that prevents everything from falling off. And the last one is this spring ring, a retainer ring or a lock ring. So, and if you look up close, there is a little prong under here that goes into this little hole just below the threaded hole in the seat frame, and the cable goes to the back because it's tucked away under the upholstery. So let's flip it over for the last time, hopefully. Yeah, there it is. And now it's neatly tucked away. My apologies for the different audio quality, but I couldn't get my wireless mic to sync, so I'm working with the camera microphone. Anyway, it's a week later. I've done some small things to the car. I reinstalled the interior components, the buttons, and this is pretty straightforward. Installation is in reverse order of removal. And I started working on the last problem that I want to tackle, hopefully tackle in this episode, and that's the water leakage via the windscreen. I already went ahead and took off the weather stripping, and there is a panel along the window, which I'll show you in a minute. I have re-glued this trim piece in, and I put some extra glue, it's an RDV-like material, it's window glue, but it's sticking real well. If I remove the trim piece on top of the window, I'm afraid that I'll damage the paint, the trim piece itself, or I'll crack the window again, and already have 2 cracks in. At some point in time the windscreen has to be replaced, but at that time I want to repaint the car too. So what I did, I got a bore scope or an endoscope, and I want to try to see through these holes if I can see a leak or a source of a pinhole or another source of water ingress. Let me pick the camera up. So the first thing you want to do is pull off the weather stripping. It's neatly clamped, but you can pull it off so far. And there is a small little hook on this top section over here. It's right here. So it's about on this corner. You have to be extra careful there. So this is the trim piece on top of the windscreen, but it's so stuck over here that I kind of bent it, so I hope I can get it back into place. And also this trim piece is off along the windscreen. It's held in place with 4 screws. Now let's hop inside. Here is the front and the leading edge of the roof skin, and water is coming in about here. So to give you some orientation, there's the A-pillar and it's about there. So there are some holes in here, and hopefully I can have a peek with the bore scope. Alright, you can see a support over here. I can see places where there's hardly any covering of the window glue. Okay, so it seems that the water creeps in underneath the glue. So the glue, which glues the windscreen to the car, isn't properly applied. And that seems to be the fault. Yeah, and you only need a pinhole for water to get in. In a way, this is somewhat of a deja vu, because 2.5 years ago I've done the same job where I repaired the rust damage on the leading edge of the roof skin on top of the windscreen. There was a lot of rust, really bad rust, and my efforts were fruitless, so to speak. What I just did, I put a painter's tape on in order not to unnecessarily damage the paint, and I peeled out all of the glue, and I took a steel brush and went through it. Oh, let's put this one out. And yeah, as you can see, there's still a lot of flaking, paint is coming off, so the rust has never been really resolved, and water has managed to get in without me knowing. So the smart thing right now would be to get the windscreen out and just repair the rust in the in the frame. I tried it to the best of my abilities with the window glass just in, but apparently it doesn't work that way. So unfortunately this won't be an easy or a cheap fix, but sometimes that's the way it is. And yeah, once a project car, always a project car. However, I want to try if I can find the leak, and now I cleaned everything inside there. I blew it out with my air gun. I thought, hey, if I spray some brake clean in there, which is a very thin fluid, and there is a little pinhole somewhere in the glue, I can find a couple of spots where I think it comes through, then at least I know where the leak was and where probably the largest damage to the bodywork is. So, oh yeah, and another thing that I wanted to show you, and I think this has something to do with the incorrect installation of the windscreen. I talked about this way back when I first looked at the car, but if I put my finger on the inside, on the edge of the roof skin, on the metalwork, it only comes halfway of the ceramic band that sits around the circumference of the window glass. So there's barely a centimeter of overlap where a glue can adhere between the glass and the metalwork of the body itself. So yeah, that's pretty poor, and I think the window should be up a little higher in the bodywork of the car. Anyway, I'm gonna set up the camera and I will just see if I can find a leak. So here comes the can of brake clean. Just spritz it into this gutter. Oh yeah, there it is. I can see it straight away coming through. I didn't expect it to come through that fast. I'm not sure if the camera picked this up. Let me try again. That's a huge leak. Did you see a drip? Right here. Now let me test here and there. Now I found a leak, but I have to give it a little bit of thinking because it won't be cheap. But as I said, I think I'm gonna call the guy and try to find a new windscreen for the LS400. A bit of a bummer, but yeah, it's at least I found the cause. So, well folks, I think I have to park this episode right here. I tried to get in touch with the guy that replaced the windscreen a couple of times for me, but unfortunately the formula he works for, where they come to your home, to your car and replace the windscreen at your location, that formula doesn't exist anymore. So it seems that I have to get the car out, go to a larger body shop or a contractor that works for insurance companies, and I know these companies and I don't like to work with them, and if I can avoid working with them, that's exactly what I'm going to do. The good thing is I can still drive the car with the current windscreen, and the one thing that I always feared for is that I really had to replace the windscreen, because I know they're pretty hard to come by. The windows in the LS400s are color matched to the body color. Mine have a bronze brown tint, and yeah, it's just a question, can I get one of those? I can probably get them from Amayama Trading, but they have to ship them all over here via air freight, and if there's one thing that I'd rather would not ship via air freight, it's a windscreen, because A, they're pretty expensive. From top of mind, they're around 1,000 to 1,500 euros. Yeah, and then the question remains, do you get it in one piece? Because hey, we're trying to solve a problem here and not create a new one. So I'm gonna reconsider my options, gonna think what I'm going to do. As said, I'd much rather take the windscreen out, repair the rust damage on the window frame and put it in. And as I said in the introduction of this video, I also wanted to work on headlight washes, but that in itself takes quite some time, and filming this episode already cost me 3 weeks, and I kind of lost track of where I was with this episode. So anyway, I'm gonna pause it over here. I'd much rather have finished it, but now we know how to finish the front seat of an LS400, and we now know where the leak of my windscreen is. So we made some kind of progress over here. Anyway folks, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you on the next one. Bye!